99.7% of people in the business are losing money. That's almost impossible to argue with. So the only way
and that's why the MLMs go after particularly young people that don't know that statistic, and that's how they get people in, is because people like us have not gotten to them first, and so it's really the first person that gets to them, whether it's pro or I'll call it anti. I'm not really anti-MLM, but you understand the analogy. To me, it's almost like an inoculation, and I don't mean to make it like COVID because that's very politically controversial. But let's say measles. If you get the shot first, a measles shot, then you will not get the measles in most cases. I mean, there's always exceptions, but it's very rare. And that's how it is with MLM, I think, is who gets to them first. Does the pro MLM person get to them and show them a dream and they start going gaga? Or do you educate somebody to say, look, this is what's really going on, so that when they are approached, they've gotten that inoculation and they'll say, I'm not interested. And then that's sort of the battle, as I see it, is who's going to be the first one.
Here in Australia, MLM's actually taught in schools now. So I know of a 14-year-old that was taught about MLMs in finance class. So once that starts to happen, MLMs, that to me will be what will kill them, when it's taught in schools that this is what MLM is, and they explain the 99.7%. And even if the kids in the class aren't paying attention, as long as they hear the 99.7%, they don't need to really know the reasons why 99.7% of people are losing money. All they need to know is that 99.7% of people do lose money, and it's game over. It's that simple.
Yeah, even if only half the kids are paying attention, that's still a big percentage. It makes it much harder to find people to recruit. Even if they're
not paying attention, if they hear 99.7% and then they get bored and drift off during the explanation of why, as long as they know 99.7% lose, they don't need to know the reasons, because that's enough.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Hey, Scott, I have a question.
Yeah.
Glenn uses the number 99.7% quite often. Now, I will admit that the percentage is big, and the percentage is probably over 90%. But where do we come with the facts that it's 99.7? So again, I'm not. So yeah. I don't want to, but I want to know where the facts come in from, because I'll let you answer first, and then I'll question your answer. So I'm not denying that the percentage is high, but I'm questioning why the number 99.7. So go ahead.
Okay. The number 99.7%, in 2006, the UK Trade Commission took Amway to court, and it turned out that everybody who had joined Amway in the UK, 99.7% had never made $1. And that number, 99.7%.
Hold on one second. I was thinking that you were referencing the industry when you were quoting those numbers, but you're quoting specific Amway numbers.
I'm specifically in the UK, every single person that was in Amway, 99.7% lost. But then I've heard figures from Herbalife and all these other companies. It's about the same. It's always 99.7 or 6 or 8. I've never heard of one. I've looked at all of them. I've never seen one where it wasn't, where 1% or more were making money. It's always 99 point something loses money, and it's always 0.6, 7, 8. It's always in that same bracket. Every single one of them. It breaks down the same every single time.
My big question would be, and remember, I said it was high 90%, but I'm always wondering where this industry gets the statistics from. If you're saying in UK, Amway, court, records, blah, 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 but I know a lot of people throw a lot of statistics around in this industry that are based on statistics that are thrown around in this industry that have nothing to do with facts. So anyway, I was just kind of curious where you got your answers.
Yeah, so my number's coming from the UK Trade Commission, not from any MLM company or any it's not coming from Anti-MLM on YouTube. It's coming from the UK Trade Commission, which I think is the most.
Got it.
I use that number
in reference to a court. in reference to a court case in Amway.
Correct, yeah. Amway had a massive court case, and the UK Trade Commission tried to shut them down in the UK in 2006. And Amway didn't dispute the number either. They agreed. Amway agreed with the 99.7%, but they tried to blame the distributors for the high loss ratios.
Correct. Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. So there was agreement.
I think the numbers in that arena, the 99 plus, let's just call it, because who cares if it's 98 or 99 or 99.7? It's almost 100%. We can say that. Because another example of that, Peter, was the Wisconsin Attorney General. Now, this was back in the 1980s, but he found that the average income of what they called platinums back then was directs, but they lost an average of $900 a year, which means they were almost breaking even because they were getting paid probably $2,000 or $3,000 a month from Amway, for their downline because they were platinums, but because of all the overhead costs and travel and the tickets to the meetings and the extra tools to buy, to keep your downline moving forward and all that, they were actually losing a little bit of money every year. Well, the platinum is kind of like the top 1%. I mean, there's pins above that, but they're very rare. You're talking emeralds and diamonds and double diamonds. Those are very rare compared to the number of platinums. And so I think that's just further evidence of the 99 plus. I know John Taylor did a lot of work over the years doing calculations, which I've never read all of his calculations because it just kind of bores me to death. But I think his conclusion was, all the MLMs he looked at, like 600 of them, it was real similar. The precise number to me isn't real important. And having said that, I will also say, based on my experience of a dozen years of recruiting people, a lot of them, I would say at least half, maybe 2/3, were incredibly lazy. They didn't do anything. Maybe they presented it to somebody and got rejected, and they said, "Oh, I don't like that feeling, so I'm going to quit." Or maybe they just changed their mind. Maybe they didn't want to tell me face to face that they weren't interested, so they kind of played like they were, and maybe even signed up. But then a day or so later, they changed their mind for whatever reason, and so that's part of that statistic. I have to say, that 99%, a lot of that is those people. But that still doesn't make it a good opportunity. That just makes it the full picture. And I'm all into the full picture here. It doesn't make it good news. It just makes it accurate as far as what really happens. And Glenn, go right ahead.
Yeah, I think I disagree with you when you talk about the people being lazy. I think the most common situation is a person joins Amway, and then what happens is they tell somebody, and the person gets on their phone or their laptop and types in Amway or multi-marketing or MLM, reads the Wikipedia page, and that's it, they quit. So I don't think you can call somebody lazy because they've been told by somebody to look at the Wikipedia page or to just type the company's name into Google. Anybody who knows nothing about Amway who you sign up, if they type that name into Google, they're going to quit.
And I agree. The problem. There's a lot of people like that too. I didn't mean to say all of them are lazy. I'm just saying I had a lot of personal people, and this is, for a few years before the internet, really, because I got started in 93. There was no internet. And then through probably the early 2000s, the information on the internet was so sparse that it really wasn't an anti-MLM resource. It was just really hard to find anything on the internet. And you really couldn't believe it because it was just text. There was no videos, there was no statistics. It was all, very sort of muddled as far as information. And so I'm talking about the years when the internet was not a good resource. I agree the last decade or so, a decade plus, that's a very large percentage of the people that quit. They check it online and they find out enough information and they say, I'm out of here. So I agree with you. We're talking about different eras, I guess, is what we're talking about.
But that was why, I know in Australia, Amway was at its peak here in 1993. And that was just as the internet was about to start. I think the internet's been the worst thing that's ever happened to the Amway Corporation, even though they try and tell the public that this is the best thing that's ever happened to us. But Just imagine though, if somebody was trying to sell you a burger